finally awake.
The match against the frozen Tsars was going to be a tricky one. The many members of the Kislev circus are masters of acrobatics, being able to leap over players at whim, and their grotesquely long legs mean they are much more capable of sticking the landing. Wait, that doesn't make sense. The linemen are cheap. Not as cheap as a fling, but they are pretty easy to obtain. This is possibly due to the fact that when it comes to growth as a unit, they haven't got much options. They have no real skills outside of their acrobatic prowess, and they are limited to the bare basics, unless Nuffle himself grants them something a little more exotic. The catcher is realistically better suited as a ball distributor. They have the ability to catch a ball that would just be out of a normal player's reach, and with their agility, passing or handing off the ball is on par with the likes of an elvish team. So pretty good to say the least. Now a Kislev blitzer is not cut from the same general blitzer cloth. Instead of using strength to poise through attacks, they go in for a sublime diving tackle, taking both themselves and anyone balls enough to try and pass them straight to the ground, to which they can jump up from and lose no movement penalty, which is very similar to the Norse berserker. The Kislev circus is also well known for its use of tamed bears. Luckily for us, we didn't have to worry about that too much. The Tsars branch was known for their obscene amount of Nuffle offerings more than anything else. As the teams lined up, I had a good feeling. I don't know if it was the atmosphere, the fact that our entire team was all fit and healthy, or that we were coming off the heels of a well-fought victory last game, but we were as ready as we had ever been. Once again, we revved up the old faithful bribe-chef combo, and right away the chef cooked up a storm. Now we only managed to get a single offering from the Tsars, which realistically didn't impact them much, but any way to ground these frogs in human skin suits as quickly as possible would be welcome. So, with the coin tossed and the Proudfoots on the offense, the match had officially begun. As the number 2 Viktor Ustinov delivered a kick that would send the ball almost into the stratosphere, the Tsars immediately changed formation, incorporating a more diamond shape to limit the centre play. As the ball landed in a sweet spot near Frito, we began our turn with both Pippin and Frito moving to shield the ball in order to get Samwise onto it the next turn. As the rest of the Proudfoots marked the opposition, Treebeard cocked that leg back and delivered a strong boot to the lineman Yaroslav Chernov, forcing his way into the Tsars' half. With first blood dripping in the water, Merry made a scathing blitz on Stanislav Lazarev, sending the lineman into Treebeard's tackle zone before providing cover for Hilbo. With Tom now free to link up with Frodo, the halflings put all their might into a push, sending Igor Dudko deeper into his own half, ending our turn. The Tsars advanced forward to block the Proudfoots in, their acrobatic prowess proving to be more dangerous than anticipated, as the blitzer Dmitry Kachenka leaped between our 2-man shield and with a kick that almost broke the sound barrier, surfed Pippin from the game. This move, however, would be the Tsar's downfall, as Frodo fell back to assist Frito with a little surf of his own. With the blitzer out of the way, Frito moved upfield, allowing Sam free range to pick up the ball and move into a somewhat loosely defensive position, with Tom Selleck moving to fortify that defense, and Treebeard once again making his presence known as he pushed Yaroslav further back. With no blitzer in proximity, Gobby freed himself from a 4-man mark to strengthen our formation, with Hilbo dodging away to provide Merry the much needed strength for a block on Viktor Ustinov, to which a double down was the result. Turnover. Once again, the Tsars' acrobatics broke through our defences, this time in the form of Igor Dudko's triple axel behind Samwise, which to his credit he had landed flawlessly. His blitz, however, less so, as it only mustered a push back, but this was twice in 2 turns that the Tsars had slipped through our defences. We needed to do better. And do better we did, as Frito led the team to a 4-man retaliation blitz on Igor, freeing the path for Samwise, who made his way to the fortress of Treeman. With the ball handler now in a safe place, Treebeard once again took Yaroslav to the floor to really apply the pressure. However, his tunnel vision had left Samwise wide open for a blitz from the linesman Stanislav Lazarev, and with a swift strike, rendered the halfling unconscious. As the ball settled onto the field, Evgeny Sadovsky made a dash to pick it up, which was derailed by a brilliant tackle from Gobby, but the offer was made, and Nuffle's second chance was all the catcher needed to leave Gobby in a crumpled heap. But it's how the old saying goes, what Nuffle giveth, Nuffle taketh away, as Wudo had enough pressure on the ball to make the kislev catcher fumble. Turn over. Our turn began with an offering to Nuffle to prevent some rooting while Wudo brushed Stanislav away from the ball, as finally Treebeard's tunneling mighty blow hit true, sending Yaroslav to the dugout via a stretcher, leaving us a nice open field as he moved to double down that ball pressure. All we needed now was one good play, and with that in mind, Hilmo pulled off a risky block to free up Smeagol. But once again, Treebeard's tunneling vision was a killer, as he had used up the blitz we desperately needed, so fate would be left in Nuffle's hands. Nuffle, however, felt like having some mischief today, as the ball acted like it was coated in grade 3 oil, causing Frito to fumble straight into Evgeny, who also fumbled. Turn over. As the Tsars began their turn, they were instantly forced to make an offering, as Nuffle tearfully granted Peter Baratinsky a successful dodge away from Merry to pick up the ball that once again was fumbled, as Nuffle's faint roars of laughter could be heard on the wind 3 towns away. Turn over, and this was our chance, but in a panic Wudo ignored Nuffle's aid and took root, forcing a push on Baratinsky, freeing up Frito to duck away, scoop up the ball and drive it downfield, giving the signal. With this, Treebeard linked up with Frito, scooped him off the floor and yeeted that ball-carrying fling as close to the end zone as treantly possible. Soaring through the air, flashbacks to the last game were bouncing around his minuscule head, but Frito knew that this time things would be different. They weren't different. Turnover. 5 turns in and we were so close to scoring. But there was no time to think about it as the Tsars began their turn, and despite Hilbo's best efforts, the final offering was used, allowing the key blitzer Viktor Ustinov to retrieve the ball from Frito's stunned carcass. Knowing they had more than enough time to get upfield, the Tsars tried to whittle the Proudfoots down. Only once again, Hilbo's dodges proved to be ever the thorn in a blocker's side. We were now down to our 6th turn, and we needed that ball back if we were to take this half. In the ultimate play, Wudo picked Smeagol out of danger, and before the halfling had time to show his gratitude, yeeted him over to Viktor Ustinov. With the halfling sticking the landing so beautifully, the Kislev circus had already planned their abduction of him later that evening. Almost tasting the opportunity, Treebeard went for broke as he rushed in for a blitz on Ustinov, smacking the blitzer to the floor and wrenching the ball into free space. This was it. Smeagol moved as fast as his tiny feet could carry him, picked up the ball and with one last painstaking drive, slammed the ball into the end zone. Touchdown, Proudfoots! It was our turn to jump for joy. This is the power of halfling teams. They may be weak, but that ability to throw your teammates is a hard option to beat when done right. Unfortunately for us, our celebrations weren't enough to stir old Sam, and he was still out for the count by the time play would resume. Any longer and we may have to get him checked. I heard the longer someone is unconscious, the more damage it does to the old noggin. That being said, the amount of ale Sam consumes during training probably does more damage, so I think he'll be fine. As Smeagol kicked the return, we had our game plan set. Safety in numbers. The Tsars may advance, but we would wall them off, and if we could, get rid of any blitzers. They were the main threat, and in our final turn of the half, we were given the chance to do so. As Wudo got a little payback on the returning Dmitry Chechenko, Gobby provided enough cover for Merry to lunge in with a cheeky little foul, which, to be fair, Merry might have overdone. Note to self, send his widow a corsage. With the blitzer not getting any much deader, the referee had no choice but to allow play on as these accidents happen. What? As play resumed, Tom went for a block on Leonid Kavansky, the lineman reversing into a beautiful kick that ended our turn, but effectively the half was won. And despite the majority of our team getting knocked onto their arses, We went into half-time feeling pretty good. The Tsars were down a key player, and Samwise had finally come too, only he had no recollection of who he actually was. I told him he was Deep Root Strong Branch and sent him back out. As the players arrived onto the pitch for the second half, the Tsars were like cold cast iron, as the chef's masterful cooking took no effect. But that was okay, because we had a game plan, and as Smeagol's boots sent the ball sky high, we just waited for our moment. The Tsars advanced forward, putting pressure on our front line, but leaving their half nice and open once again. As Evgeny Sadovsky attempted to pick up the ball, not even Nuffle himself could help the catcher keep hold, and the ball nestled 2 spaces from the end zone. Which, if the first half meant anything, Nuffle was probably still having his little fun. Now was our chance to strike, and in true Proudfoot fashion, Widowsudo took root, and with a little prayer to Nuffle, attempted to yeet Samwise to the ball. Nuffle answered at the cost of accuracy, and Samwise crashed to the floor a mere 4 spaces from where he was thrown, the halfling gingerly picking himself up and moving upfield. With the executed plan now on the rails, as expected when Nuffle is heavily involved, we threw away said plan and went on the hurt train, as Treebeard blitzed Kavansky into the KO'd section. But we weren't done there. As the Treeman moved upfield to provide Sam some aid, the Proudfoots mobilized to thin the Tsar's herd. Hilbo only gaining a push, but it was Frito who came through for us, taking down the new blitzer by the name of Nestor Nekayev. The Tsars began their turn by regaining some formation in their ranks, as Evgeny finally made up for his earlier blunder. Now with the ball in their possession, the Tsars went on the offense, Stanislav and Igor only mustering pushes on Gobby and Hilbo, who once again were proving to be pests for the opposition team. However, this meant Mikhail Chichenko was now free to assist Mikhail Sadovsky in poising through Tommaso's retaliation, downing the fling to end their turn. As Tommaso staggered to his feet, Treebeard's swipe at Sadovsky didn't get the connection we all wanted. This resulted in a pushback, but with Evgeny so close to his end zone and no one to aid him, we had a chance to pull away and we had to take it now. Knowing this, Samwise moved like lightning for a blitz on the ball carrier, smashing the ball out of the Kislev catcher's grasp, before picking up said ball and driving it home for our second touchdown. 2-0 to the Proudfoots. The Tsars couldn't believe it, the fans couldn't believe it, but I could. We had been working our butts off for this, and it clearly showed. As the players settled down, Smeagol kicked off once again, but the score must have gotten to the halfling's head as he kicked the ball sky high, allowing Mikhail Sadovsky enough time to get under and receive. However, once again the ball slipped out of his hands, giving us a little reprieve. With the ball still in a good spot, the Tsars mobilized forward, marking the Proudfoots and forming a channel on the left side of the field. As Evgeny Sadovsky picked up the ball, his brother Mikhail moved in for a hefty blitz on Frito, the kick only managing to knock the halfling down. Igor Dudko did no better as Hilbo shrugged the attack off, resulting in only a pushback. However, it was Gobby and Frodo who would fall hard, as both flings were stunned by hellacious kicks. Still though, they were on the field, so things weren't so bad. Our turn began with a powerful blitz from Treebeard, the Treeman forcing space to move up and mark Evgeny. Widowsudo followed things up by hurling Sam behind enemy lines, allowing the agile fling to link with Treebeard in a pincer maneuver on the Tsar's ball handler. With that, the Proudfoots began to wall the Tsars in, Tom using the strength he had to floor Igor Dudko, freeing Hilbo enough to slip in and assist Tommaso with a thunderous tackle that removed Piotr Abramov from the game. We were almost halfway through the Tsar's turn before Piotr Varaninsky took the initiative to make a protective blitz on Samwise, who managed to dodge the attack with ease, but this was the distraction Evgeny needed to duck past Treebeard and sprint to the halfway line, where he would be joined by Stanislav Lazarev for some aid. Boosted by that play, the Tsars pushed back, knocking our flingy heroes to the ground and making sure Samwise was completely isolated upfield. The only thing was they forgot to mark Treebeard. a big mistake on their part, as Gobby made his way to prevent any movement from the ball handler, and while Tom, Frodo and Merry made Leonid Kavinsky the Suka, Treebeard cashed in on that lack of marking and with one lift of his mighty leg, booted Evgeny almost out of his boots, ripping the ball from the catcher once again. With the ball now free, both Frito and Wudo Sudo moved into shield. Now with the ball secure and our turn over, the Tsars started things off by blocking Sam even further. Mikhail Sadovsky was left frustrated as his blitz on Frito was dodged with ease. However, it would be Victor who would prove merit to that key blitzer role, as Hilbo was stunned by an ear-ringing kick. Even Tommaso couldn't get away from the Tsars' offense, but it was Samwise who kept our chances of 3-0 alive as he dodged out of Pietr's attack, and in turn, the overwhelming pressure from the Tsars. As we reached the halfway point of the second half, Frito made a mad rush past Mikhail Sadovsky to pick up the ball. Once again, ball in hand, the Proudfoots mobilized a small screen upfield. And normally in this situation, one would yeet Frito in between the gap into safety. However, taking into account Frito's luck with yeets, he would probably end up killing Treebeard, so he held off on any yeeting-based actions and tried our hardest to protect Frito instead. This hesitation, however, gave the Tsars enough of an opening to tie Wudo Sudo up, removing any future yeet options. Before I could even think, Victor had already flanked us with a blitz on Frito, but the halfling was quick, forcing no more than a push, but things were dicey. We were completely surrounded as Mikhail Sadovsky pushed Tom Selleck back, locking up 1/3 of the team, with the Tsars finishing their turn by sending Samwise to the floor. 3 turns left and we kicked things off with a kick from Wudo Sudo, pushing Victor Ustinov back and away from our ball handler. Frodo, trying to preserve our blitz, went for a block on Evgeny, but once again a push was all that came out of it, forcing Frito to blitz his way out of a tight situation. Using his stunty frame, Frito managed to get to the small screen and take a momentary breather as Treebeard moved ahead of the young fling. This breather, however, was short-lived as Treebeard yeeted him as close to the end zone as possible. Frito knew this had to be it. The odds were in his favor. This time, he would stick the landing. He did not. Turn over. The Tsars' penultimate turn, and we had done enough. They couldn't score, and they knew it. It was now more about damage control, not to lose 3-0, and as the Tsars finished their turn by stunning Tom and flooring Merry, we still had that chance to get that 3-0 victory. No sooner as our turn started, Smeagol assisted Treebeard in a rushing blitz on Evgeny, removing him from the match and luckily keeping the ball in play. Gobby moved like lightning to pick up the ball and keep himself safe behind Treebeard. Seeing the golden opportunity, Sam and Hilbo both rose to lock down the group of Tsars upfield, giving no quarter. The Tsars didn't care though. They saw their chance and they took it, as Leonid Kavinsky moved into blitz Gobby, who drew a big sigh of relief as the fling was only pushed back, leaving the Tsars linemen in a really bad position for our final turn. As Frodo was stunned by a strong boot, Samwise caught Mikhail Tachenko and both players were knocked down. But then, my blood ran cold, and for a moment, I thought we would have another name etched onto that tombstone. But the apothecaries did their job, and Samwise would just sit the rest of the match out on the bench. However, he did grant us a turnover, and on our last turn, this was it. Treebeard sent Leonid Kavinsky into the depth of the crowd, freeing the path for Gobby, but in an act of pure teamsmanship, Gobby gave the call to Frito to pick himself up and go to the end zone. Finally, there was no trees throwing him, no awkward landings, just a small rush to the end zone for a simple handoff. Nothing could stop him this time. This was his moment. So the Proudfoots won 2-0, and once again we had no real injuries. What's more, that win took us to 3rd place behind the Red Boys and Furiaxes. Treebeard got the MVP and was so close now to becoming a star of his own. Sadly, we had to bid farewell to another player, as a case of mistaken identity saw Frodo bowing out and becoming a member of the Kislev circus. But one team's loss is another team's win, as we gained a second chance when we signed Tony's son, Tony Jr., to a full contract. But with 2 games to go and the Red Boys and Furiaxes set to face each other in the final game, we had a chance to clinch the league. Only to do it, we first had to face a team who were also in contention, the High Elf team, Flaming Dragons. And this may prove to be our toughest match yet. Okay guys, that's it for today's adventure. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the bell thingy, follow me on the Twitters, and check out some of my other videos. Also, I'm starting to do live streams, which I'm going to try and do every Monday, Wednesday in the weekend, or Tuesday, Thursday in the weekend. So keep your eyes out for that. And finally, tune in next time where we play the Flaming Dragons in our most important match of the series so far. But until that day, this has been Techno Odin. Stay safe, claim skulls, and may Nuffle bless your dice.